In a shocking and chilling crime, the bodies of two adult men and a baby girl were stolen from a private funeral parlour in Kuruman in the Northern Cape last month. Now, according to police, two unidentified suspects broke into the premises during the early hours of the morning on the 17th of March. Northern Cape police are offering a reward of 100,000 rand for information that can lead to the arrest of the suspects and the retrieval of those bodies. For more on this, we're joined by the spokesperson of the funeral industry of South Africa, Muzi Hlengwa. Muzi, good afternoon, and thanks very much for joining us. What an awful case, and we understand that the suspects brutalized a security guard, subduing him, and then made off with those bodies. Just initially, just your reaction on this story.
Good afternoon to you and the viewers at home. Maybe one would like to start by apologizing for the background. I'm coming to you from one of the smaller churches here in Bucks Farm called Grace Community Church under Bishop Zondi. Look, it's sad to hear that criminals, they go to that land of breaking down and stealing bodies for whatever reasons known to them. It is unhuman. It's inhuman, in fact, to have people doing such, in a place whereby the deceased are to be rested and awaiting the date or the day of the funeral where they are going to be put in the final resting place.
Yeah, and thanks for those. One can imagine, the families directly involved in this and their plans to make funeral arrangements or so on, completely scuppered, notwithstanding the emotional distress of not knowing where their loved ones potentially are, because we understand this was a private funeral parlour. Which would mean there is, these are not unidentified bodies. These are corpses and human remains of people with families who are now making funeral arrangements. We're certainly trying to reach out to the funeral parlour directly involved. But how planned would something like this have had to be, do you think?
No, look, I thought at some point it's because there's this rule that says people are not allowed to sleep at the mortuary facilities. I thought it's because there was nobody at the facility. But after, listening to people who had a better information than myself, I found out that it's the other way around. Look, this happens many times because of the clash of families of the bereaved. You'll remember an incident whereby a body of a famous businessman in KZN, eThekwini, was taken at gunpoint by the members of the family on the other side. You see, so in situations like this, you will find that families are unable to sit down and conclude their arguments, and then, or maybe even use, means like going to court and stuff like that. They just come and do it otherwise. In this instant, it is unclear why the bodies were stolen. It might be because of some mood issues, might be because of some insurance issues. There are so many other issues around it that we cannot comprehend yet.
All right, Muzi, let's come in there because, again, and I just appreciate all of the stories you must hear when it comes to the securing of human remains and having people buried and so on. It's really, really fascinating. And as you say, there could be some existing family issues, but we're not sure if these bodies are connected to the same family. And again, as you've left it open, we're not quite sure why these particular bodies would have been taken. But you mentioned something that's quite important relating to potential underlying issues. And insurance fraud seems to be a key one in cases we've seen in other stories across the country, because police have found this to be the case in other provinces as well. And we've seen your association also talking about a rise in body thefts linked to insurance scams. So talk to us about that and what you've observed when it comes to that possibility.
Yeah, that's one critical area, you know, in the thefts of body thefts, and the insurance fraud and corruption that is happening, you know. As we know that on the 6th of April, we had even launched the Undertakers Award to try and improve the service excellency and ethical behavior amongst ourselves. It is a battle that we need to fight because these are syndicates who work together with the police, people from Home Affairs, you know, even people from the graveyard. They are a collective. They do this very often. But what they normally do is that they will come in an undertaker's a mortuary and bribe employees to borrow them the bodies for a short while they want to use them. In this case, bodies were totally stolen, which is something that we can't really link directly with this insurance fraud. But it may very well happen that it is. Or otherwise, maybe it might be an undertaker who is bitter, who cannot take the fact that he or she is being beaten in the field by this particular undertaker, then to drag their name down to the mud, they will orchestrate this and steal the body in order for this undertaker to have a bad name. But as I'm saying now, we are not yet sure of what transpired there, but we, as the leaders in the industry, are working day and night to ensure that we get to the bottom of it and we find out what really transpired. If we ask to increase maybe security at the mortuaries, we must do so that we protect the bodies, because when the families give us their bodies, they are sure that the bodies are taken care of by us. They are in our care, and the safety should be provided by us. We would like to extend our condolences, our heartfelt condolences to the families, and we apologize to South Africa that this take place at a private mortuary where we are as our private undertakers in charge of the safety of these bodies.
We'll come to mortuary management as a final question in just a moment, but in some cases, we've seen that these individuals conduct sham funerals to legitimize those claims, and that relates to the insurance claims, which gives rise to the question of how closely your industry works with insurers to monitor something like this, or are your two industries just separate from each other?
Look, this is bigger than you can think of. The government officials, the insurance themselves, the police, the doctors, those at the graveyard, and some undertakers are all involved in this. So it's very difficult to try and get rid of it as swiftly as we would like it to happen. We have even introduced a system whereby the deceased will be identified there and there. When someone dies, you'll take the biometric and send the information to Home Affairs. But Home Affairs has been stalling when it comes to that. One can say the reason behind is that they want to keep this industry as open as much as possible, so that they can do whatever they want to do. Even the insurance companies themselves are part of this kind of shenanigans.
Yeah, that's quite serious, and I think maybe we need another conversation just systemically to look at what's been happening, the kind of framework and environment that allows syndicates to thrive. And for this to be a money-making scheme, over, the human remains, something that is such an emotive thing, especially if families have simply not able then to trace their bodies, the bodies of their loved ones. But I, again, want to go into that concept of mortuary management, though, Muzi. How much of a problem is it in general in your industry, in terms of making sure there's that hygienic practice of the administration on the one hand and the safeguarding of those bodies?
When it comes to the hygienic part of it, the environmental health is doing a good job. In fact, the private mortuaries are the cleanest in the industry above any other mortuaries that you can think of. But when it comes to the safety, this is where we are being compromised because, as I've alluded before, of the laws that does not allow people to sleep at the mortuary. They're expecting us to work 24 hours, meaning you must open 24 hours, but people cannot have a room where they sleep in at the mortuary. So it's very difficult because at the end of the day, the office does not open at night. The mortuary is responsive at night. It's not active, but it's responsive. We respond only as and when we get a call to collect a body. So obviously, if you don't get a call for a body the whole night, nothing is happening. So it becomes very expensive just to hire people who will just stay for the night doing nothing. But having said that, we try to have at least a security guard, of which at the end of the day, if you have one security guard, he will be overwhelmed when they come in with guns and all that at night to take the bodies. But nobody anticipates that people will come in this fashion and steal a body. What has been happening is that previously they will bribe mortuary employees to gain access to the bodies, not in this fashion that it had happened with this one.
Muzi Hlengwa, thank you for talking to us. It's quite a fascinating subject that we've discussed, though sadly, as you said at the very beginning, commiserations and condolences to the families who now have secondary trauma to deal with. We're not sure if these bodies are indeed connected and what the circumstances around their disappearance or their theft is related to. Muzi Hlengwa is the spokesperson of the funeral industry of South Africa, seeming to be quite a lively business in South Africa.